Hello, I'm Ann Gritch, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this segment of the oral history of the Diocese of San Jose. And with me is Father Gerardo Menchaca. Father Menchaca is the pastor of Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish and one of the shining lights among the clergy. So welcome, Gerardo.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about your background? You were born in Mexico, right?
I was born and raised in Mexico, and I came to the United States after I finished my high school. My dad, he grew up in Texas, and he always wanted us to learn English. But when you live in the border, that's impossible. You always speak Spanish. So my aunt, she lived in San Jose, and she invited me to come and live with her, and that's what I did.
Okay.
Yes, and that was in 1985.
1985.
That's
and
correct.
Then did you go right into the seminary?
No, I went to San Jose City College. I was learning English. Yes, I was there for a whole year. During that year, that's when I met the sisters, the missionaries, Eucharistic missionaries of the Most Holy Trinity, and Father Kevin Joyce.
So you go back a long ways.
Oh, yes. He was the first priest I met at this diocese.
So you went then to St. Joseph's Seminary first?
Yes, I went to St. Joseph's College, and I was there for 5 years, and then to St. Patrick's.
Yes, because I met you when our diocesan offices were at St. Joseph's
That is
Seminary.
correct. That is correct, yes.
Yeah. That is. So you were ordained in
1995.
95, you and Father Mercado.
That's correct.
Right, okay. So tell us about the early days of ministry in San Jose.
My experience, first of all, I want to say that when I came to the United States, the first thing that I noticed was the multi-ethnic aspect of this church. Yes, definitely. You had the Vietnamese already at St. Patrick's, you have the Hispanics, you have the Filipino community. One of the things that I like very much from my formation with the Sulpicians was to teach us that the face of Christ is multi-ethnic, and being able to be formed with that vision that the church is multi-ethnic, and that even though we have the same faith, we express our faith differently.
Exactly.
And to me, it was a gift, really, for my faith, being open. I mean, one of the things that the Sulpician taught us was to be open, to accept, to be attentive, and to be surprised by how people express their own faith, and you become very respectful of that. Having that as my formation, as the background, and then I was assigned to St. Maria Goretti.
Oh, why?
Exactly, which is, as you know, is very multi-ethnic. It's a very large community, and you have three main communities. You have the Vietnamese, you have the English-speaking, and that means also a lot of Filipino, and the Hispanic people, mainly from Mexico. What I noticed at the past, one of the things that I learned was the importance of that each community needed to express their own voice. Yes, in fact, I remember, because you hear a lot of stories when you're a seminarian and also when you get ordained, the first things that I was exposed to that because I was in the seminary was about the agentes pastorales. Remember that when there were two sisters, Sister Gloria and Ana Maria Pineda. One of the things that they did that I remembered was that they used to have a meeting in they used to have a meeting of all the agentes pastorales. The agentes pastorales were the leaders, the priests and the leaders of all the Hispanic community. And they will gather and they will discuss, identify issues, discuss issues, and then they will present that to the diocese. In my opinion, that was very effective. And the reason I believe was very effective, it reminds me to what Pope Francis is saying today. Pope Francis is inviting us to create a room.
That's right.
To create room for difficult discussions, for dialogue, and so when I heard the Pope Francis saying that nowadays, immediately my mind went back to the back. And I thought, our diocese has been doing this from the very beginning.
Very beginning, even before.
From the very, even before. That is correct, even before.
That's exciting to think of that.
It is. I mean, just think about our responsibility of creating that space, that room for people from other cultures to have a voice.
Exactly.
And so we can listen to that voice. And that is what the diocese has been doing from the very, very beginning, even before that. I was told, like, for example, that with the Hispanic Ministry, you had people like Sacred Heart, Father Mateo Chiri, Father McDonald, who was in Guadalupe.
Yes.
Even
way back.
Way back.
Yeah.
St. Patrick's already had the cathedral with the Jesuits. So you already have priests who are working, opening the doors to the Hispanic people. It's a response to the needs of our diocese, of the church.
And you had Anglo priests who knew Spanish.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
I'm thinking of Father Bob Moran.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yes, and there were people who... and so one of the things that I learned in my formation is that, one, that the church and the face of Christ is multicultural, but number two, that the leaders, we need to become what I describe as a bridge. Having the capacity, you see, it's not only about learning the language.
No, that's
it's also about learning the culture and the way people feel, the way they think, how they express their faith. And to me, that is a must. As a leader, you must become a bridge to connect to, you need to, if you come from another country, you need to learn the language of this country. You need to know how people think, how the system works. But it works also the other way around.
Yes.
People from here also need to learn as much as they can the other culture, the language, how the people think. And to me, that is the most effective way of being a minister. Whether you are a priest, a religious, a lay person, I believe that all of us need to be formed that way. And I also believe that that is what the church, our diocese, has been doing.
And a lot of it is just working with the different communities to get to know how they are. And one of the blessings of our diocese, too, is the fact that we are small enough in terms of geography. We're large population-wise, but it's easy for us to get around and to know one another.
That is correct. That is correct.
That's one of the blessings, I do think.
Yes.
You earned your doctorate in spirituality in Rome.
Yes, I did. And that was in 2005.
What was that experience like?
It was wonderful.
Was it?
Yes. At the time, I was working full-time at the seminary, at St. Patrick's Seminary. I was a spiritual director. And then I was asked to go to Rome, where I did... the idea was for me to teach. So I went to Rome and I did a diploma and also my SDL and my doctorate in spirituality. When I got back, that changed. The whole plan changed. Why? It changed because of the needs we have.
Sure.
So by looking at the needs of the church or diocese, it was needed for me to be in a parish. Now, my experience in Rome was wonderful. I loved the studies. And I guess I'm going to say what most people who have doctorates say, and that is that the more you study, the more you realize that you still have a lot of things to learn. Yes.
It can be a humbling experience, I suspect.
It is.
And a good one. Yeah.
Definitely.
So the challenges, because when you came back, the diocese had grown, had changed a bit, new parishes. What kinds of things did you see that were different?
One of the changes that I noticed when I came back was that we have more priests from other countries. And we have priests from Argentina, like nowadays we have priests from Africa as well. And when I say it's a challenge, it's just what I just said a few minutes ago. We need to be a bridge, you say. So when you have the Hispanic community and you have priests from other countries, that is wonderful. But it's also a responsibility that the priests who come from another countries, who were formed in another countries, and they express their faith in their own cultural way, it's important for them also to learn not only the culture of the United States, the language, so they can help the Hispanic community to connect them and to guide them within this culture of the United States. So that's one of the changes that I noticed. First of all, that to see a lot of priests, which is a wonderful, I thought it's a blessing for us to have them here.
Well, as you say, we see Christ in the multicultural,
Definitely.
so that would include our priests.
Definitely. The other thing that I noticed is that when I was in the seminary, we didn't have not a single pastor who was Hispanic.
Really?
Yes, there were no
Wow.
pastors, Hispanic pastors. So now we have several of them. Now that's a big change.
Yeah.
Because I remember in the seminary, that was one of the discussions, one of the questions. How come if the Hispanic community is so large, we do not have leaders, pastors who are Hispanics? Now we do.
Yes.
And so that's one of the changes also that I noticed.
And a bishop came out of our Hispanic community also, who's now the Bishop of Monterrey.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Richard.
Yeah.
Yes, Bishop Richard Garcia.
Who's
That
doing
is
wonderful
correct.
work.
Who was also connected with the Agentes Pastorales.
Yes, yes.
From the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we were fortunate to be able to interview Bishop Garcia, and he talked with great affection about those days with Ana Maria and Sister Gloria.
That's
It
correct.
was just quite wonderful. Yeah. So how would you say your experience in Rome and your degree, how has that impacted your ministry besides pointing out that you need to know more?
I did my my doctorate in suffering and in spirituality.
Ah.
And the reason I chose that topic was because it's a priest. I will say that 95% of the times you meet with people are dealing with very difficult situations that are suffering. I've been a priest for 22 years now, and I will say the majority of people are facing suffering in their lives. So for me as a priest, that was something very important to deal with. I also, as a priest, the most difficult experience that I have had in my ministry has been doing a funeral for two little girls who were killed by a drunk driver in front of their mother.
Oh my.
I was newly ordained, I was in Maria Goretti, and I remember how difficult that was for me as a priest, because what can you say?
What do you say?
Exactly. And I felt that I couldn't say anything. I mean, I felt my words were empty. And I remember the mother of those two little girls yelling and screaming, very, very angry at God,
Sure.
A lot of crying. And I just remember as a priest feeling that I didn't have what it was needed to bring God to that family. And I'm going to tell you what I learned from that experience. And what I learned from that experience is I remember what I decided to do was to visit them. Because in this Hispanic community, we have the novena. And so I went every day. I remember I was terrified.
I bet.
Going to the home because the mother was very angry still at God. And for her, I represented God. So she was yelling, screaming at me. I remember going there and I didn't know what to do. There were a lot of ladies, families present, and they will be crying. And you know what helped the most?
No, what?
This, praying the rosary.
Ah.
It was incredible because, and that's something that I learned as a priest. It was, anything I said meant nothing. But then I invited the people just to pray the rosary. So we went from people yelling and screaming to just very peaceful. And that's all I did for 9 days. The last day I went, the family had already moved from San Jose, so I didn't have the chance to say goodbye. And that was the end of it. At the end of that experience as a priest, I always felt that I needed to do more.
Okay.
And I didn't know what. So I carried that for 5 years.
My.
5 years later, at the end of one of the masses, a lady comes to me. Of course, I don't recognize her, and is the mother of the two girls.
Mother. Oh,
yes.
my goodness.
She comes back after 5 years, and she says to me, "I just want to thank you for visiting me in the most difficult days of my life.
Wow.
And thank you for praying with me the rosary. So to me, I learned that God works in mysterious ways. You never know when or how. And also I learned about the rosary. I mean, I know some people say it's very just repetitious. And no, for me, it's about a presence. It's about a presence in the most difficult moments. That was what I learned in that experience.
It's wonderful. That is
so
wonderful.
When I was doing my doctorate, I have that experience with me.
I bet you did.
I did. And I see suffering as a door through which God's grace comes to us.
That's beautiful. Tell me about your ministry at Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, which is
huge, wonderful, challenging parish.
You know, to me, I'm blessed to be in Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish. It has been wonderful. It has been not easy. And I have learned so much. That's why I love it being there. If you were to ask me to go to a parish where it will be easier or less work, I will say no. I will say no. And the reason is that I'm learning so much. The people, the community are teaching me so much. This is my first time as a pastor of a community. The community itself has gone through a lot of difficulties, a lot of transitions.
Yes.
I mean, just going from being Franciscan to diocesan. And I see it as a process of healing. And when I say that they are teaching me is there's a very strong faith in the people. Now, the majority of them, I would say 90% are immigrants. And the majority are Mexicans. I'm Mexican. So I know them.
Now, are they recently recién llegados or?
No, some of them have been there for a few years. Some of them are new. So I would say the majority of the children are totally bilingual, bicultural.
That's a gift.
But they have, or the families, chosen to go to the Spanish-speaking masses. We also have the English community, which is a minority. When I say English, I'm talking a small group of Mexican-American people and Filipinos. We have also a Filipino community present.
Which is the English-speaking.
That is, will be the English-speaking community, yes. Right. And right now we're doing wonderful. We're doing a lot of projects. We're doing a lot of formation. Our Lady Guadalupe has been the source of always looking at social justice issues, and we continue doing that. There is a beautiful spirit right now.
Well, the parish has sent so many students to the Institute for Leadership and Ministry, wonderful leaders. But every year, because I know when I was working with Sandra Torres, who is a parishioner of yours, and all the numbers would come in from Guadalupe, and I was at St. Thomas Aquinas, and our numbers were only our Latino community at Our Lady of the Rosary, and I was feeling like, Sandra, how come I don't have more? No, you have really had some wonderful people going through, and I'm sure they're doing some grand things.
We do, and I think like the challenges that I see as a pastor, I describe them as positive problems. Every time I have a problem, I always say to the people, now this is a positive problem. Why? Because it's about we want more. We want more training. We want more formation. We want more retreats. We want more confessions. And so that's why it becomes a problem, but it's a positive problem.
It is. It's a nice problem to have.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, just confessions. Saturdays, we are there 2 hours back to back, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And 2 priests, and we don't have enough. It's not enough. Wow. There's always more people, more people. And so that is a blessing and a challenge at the same time. Yeah.
Now, Father Gerardo, you sit on the board for the Deacon Formation and Advanced Lay Leadership. What are your thoughts about the diaconate, particularly as it relates to the Latino community, the Hispanic?
Yeah, first of all, I think that we need more deacons. The Hispanic community needs more leaders, as I just said. We need more vocations. I also believe that if I look at our diocese, at least my experience from when I came to the seminary to nowadays, and I ask myself, what has been the most effective way of doing ministry where you can respect diversity, but at the same time work in the unity of the church as being very multi-ethnic, respecting also the culture? I will say, in my mind, we'll go back to the Agentes Pastorales. Even at that time, you already had the deacon program, and you had, I mean, Guadalupe had 5 deacons at the time. Right now, I don't have one, and with all the work we have. And what I see is that at the time, you had 2 different tracks. You had one track for the Spanish-speaking deacons, their formation. And so I believe that, for me, that it will be the most effective way. Why? Because you have people who are immigrants. I was the vicar for Hispanics in our diocese, and he gave me the opportunity to visit all the different parishes. I met with all the communities, the leaders, I identified the problems, and all of them want more. They want more priests, more deacons. Yes, the positive problem. And I remember also that you do have men who can be very effective deacons, but because they are immigrants, they have a problem with the language. So it's not that they are not smart.
No.
But they don't have the vocation. They struggle with English, you know, it can be very difficult.
English is a very difficult language to learn. I am very grateful it's my first language, quite frankly.
No, it is. It's not easy. So when you have men that they might have the vocation, they are interested, but then if you don't have, and we as a diocese have not created the structure for them to learn in Spanish, to learn, you know, to study in Spanish, to be evaluated in Spanish.
Do you think we have the resources for that?
No, we don't. And I think that is the challenge. I think what we're doing is very good, and I think we're doing the best we can, and I like it, and I know we're very flexible. If I were to dream, if I could dream about it, I definitely would like to have and to see 2 different tracks. I think Los Angeles is doing that. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and I believe also the Archdiocese of San Antonio.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, because of the needs they have. So one of the things that I would like to, and I pray for it, is for us to continue creating the room and the space for each culture to express their faith the best, you know, with their own individuality. So in the deacon program, my hope is that in the future we will be able to have a track for the Hispanic vocations.
I think that's something that we should work towards. I really do. I'm just thinking when I was involved in the program, there were some wonderful men and wonderful women for advanced lay leadership too. That would be wonderful.
Yes, that's what we do at the ILM. I mean, you see it at the ILM. When the students are able to express themselves in their own language, is very different.
It is very different.
It is very, very different.
And we did have a few, it was wonderful, who could study in either language, so they had a breadth of choice that no one else had.
Yes, it is.
It was really
and to me, that is the ideal, of course.
You
know, for people to be bilingual, bicultural, that's always ideal. Yes.
So besides that, what other challenges do you see facing our diocese and our community, our Latino community?
Our diocese, and I go back to what I'm saying about the community being able to express itself in its own language. I'm gonna, for example, if I look at the infrastructure of the diocese, we have one office, which is wonderful, it's a blessing, and then we have maybe 3 or 4 more offices where, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think having one only for the Hispanic community, having 3 more for the English speaking, Lupita and Sandra, I believe they're doing their best, but it's not enough. They cannot cover all the needs of the Hispanic. They can't.
No, and they're breaking their necks trying to.
Exactly. So they have to deal with everything.
Everything,
And they can't. They can't. And so one of the challenges for me, again, is can we look at it as a diocese, and maybe we don't have the resources, but well, let's look at it. Let's try to create this space to create this space and room for the Hispanic community to be able. Why? It's not only because I think it's a good idea, it's because you look at the needs we have.
Sure.
I mean, even when you have the bishop saying that 40% or even more of our Catholics are Spanish-speaking people. So that is the need right in front of you. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I noticed as a priest is there is a hunger for learning, formation, a spiritual life from the Hispanic community.
And I think that is one of the great gifts that they give to the church.
Oh, definitely.
Is that yearning.
Faith.
And the yearning.
Exactly, exactly. No, I agree with you. I mean, wherever you go, where there is masses in Spanish and English, just go to the masses, and you will see a big difference. The Spanish masses are packed. Yep. They are packed because people desire, that is our faith of our people. And so there is a need, and it's a matter of us being able to respond to that need. And I think we need to look at how we are responding to the need of our church.
Yeah, and I think it is a question of leadership development, both clergy and lay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. Right. Definitely.
So what else should we be talking about, Father?
What else? I believe that the Hispanic community is a blessing in our church.
I would agree.
I believe that. I believe that, again, I will emphasize the need of us leaders who can connect to my people. I admire and respect people who are not his priests and lay person like yourself, who are totally bilingual and bicultural. You made a choice to learn in Spanish and to work with my people, and I'm very grateful for that.
It's been a blessing in my life.
I'm very grateful to priests. I mean, just having like Father Steve Kim.
Yes.
Learning in Spanish. And Father Kevin Joyce.
Father Steve Brown.
Steve Brown. I mean, there are so many priests who have made a choice to learn the language and not only the language, the culture.
Exactly. Who've gone to study in Mexico and have
That is correct. Yeah. And to me, that is the model. And I would like to see that in the holy structure of the church. So even what the bishop said, that he would like to see maybe a Hispanic bishop or someone who speaks Spanish, I pray for that as well.
I think most of the diocese is praying for that as well.
I do. I pray for that. And it's not only about being able to speak the language, it's about connecting with the people. And that when the people knows that their voice is being listened to. To me, that is, and to me, that's when I see, again, I go back to what I said, that is the face of Christ. So when we talk about faith, is we learn to respect each culture. Each culture expresses their faith very differently. And that's okay.
Altogether, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It's more than okay. It's
exactly.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. And yes, it is more difficult. And yes, we will have more positive problems. But then we will deal with it.
Exactly.
You know, then we will deal with that. Yeah. And so I just feel that we are blessed to be in this diocese, and I mean it. I do. I think I was in Texas for 2 years because my elderly mother was very sick, and I loved it. I had a wonderful experience and beautiful community in Hondo, Texas. There was one thing I missed, and that was the multi-ethnic aspect. Yes. And I remember calling my friend, because sometimes when you're working with Hispanic, there is a lot of needs and a lot of work.
Yes.
And I remember calling a friend of mine, a priest, and say to him, you know, I'm going to tell you something, and please remind me when I'm back in San Jose, but I do miss the chaos working with my people. I do. There is something, it's
energizing.
Life. Exactly. Yeah. There is life, there is energy. And that's, to me, a sign of the presence of the Holy Spirit, definitely.
And that's probably a good note for us to end. But thank you so much for being with us. This has been grand.
No, thank you.